The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
So after we talked about XCOM, Sean wrote in and said what his favorite computer game of all time was, and it's Starflight 1 and 2. And I looked into it, and I think maybe I did play this at some point, but it does look like a pretty cool game, and I think maybe one that could use a modern update. That would be cool. But moving on, basically all three stories today just so happen to be football related. I did not do that intentionally.
But drastically different. I mean, they should still appeal to non-football fans.
Yes. First, I try to. That's what I try to do when I pick stories. Will this appeal to everyone? Of course, when I'm talking about my favorite computer game of all time, it doesn't really appeal to everyone. But it was fun to talk about. So what's been happening here is that San Francisco has been trying to improve their image a bit in advance of Super Bowl 50, which will be hosted there. And what they've been doing is hiding homeless people, kicking homeless people out of certain places.
Right.
Some people have been bumped up and allowed into certain sought-after shelters. Other people were not so fortunate. Other people said that the cops basically just showed up, kicked them out of wherever they were living, and said, you can come back after the Super Bowl. We've talked about crazy things related to what happens in cities during the Super Bowl. There's this whole sex trafficking thing that happens during the Super Bowl.
Yep. And we've also talked about how homeless are treated at the World Cup and Olympics as well, right?
Yes.
So it's not just the Super Bowl in the U.S.
Yep. And they are probably being treated better in this case than they were in, let's say, I don't know, name a country that dealt with the World Cup. Oh, Brazil.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad. And so that's what's happening here. I mean, it's really not that surprising, but San Francisco has a pretty large homeless population, and there's no way you're going to be able to hide this from people that are coming to the city, right? It's going to be obvious.
Unless they are staying, I don't know exactly which stadium. Is this being played where the San Francisco 49ers play? Is that where the Super Bowl is going to be?
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that is a new stadium, I think.
I mean, for the most part, no. You're not going to be able to hide the homeless people from all of the tourists. But I guess the idea is just to sort of keep the perimeter near the stadium as homeless-free as possible for PR purposes or something.
I mean, this city is going to fill up. The Super Bowl is no joke.
And it's not that big of a city geographically.
That's true. So where are you going to hide these people? And what is the point? I think most people are probably aware that there is a homeless situation in San Francisco. I just think it's weird how cities deal with this stuff. And I don't know. I'm not sure what type of social commentary I'm going for here.
Yeah, well, but I guess the overarching themes are whenever there's big sporting events, all of a sudden the locals, the homeless, the poor, they don't really matter. It's all part of the broader corporatist status quo of professional sports, and it's really horrible. I mean, isn't that the sort of broad strokes of it?
Yeah, I guess that's it. That's fair.
And are people supporting it by watching the Super Bowl? I don't know. Interesting question.
Now I think you can separate that.
All right.
There are other reasons why. There are better reasons why you shouldn't be watching the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I think.
Like the irreversible brain damage to the players.
Which we will be talking about shortly.
Yeah.
But let's move on to this Super Bowl 1 tape. Now, I did not know about this. Dave alerted me to this story. Some guy named Troy Hopt is a 47-year-old nurse anesthetist in North Carolina's Outer Banks. And I've been to the Outer Banks. On a side note, it's quite nice during the summer. But the Outer Banks is actually where Kitty Hawk is, where the Wright brothers flew their first plane.
Right.
There's also a place called Kill Devil Hills, which is great. I mean, the name is great. It's a little boring, but
wasn't that much to do there.
Right. So anyway, this guy owns the only known recording of Super Bowl 1. And it just blows my mind that the NFL does not have this that they haven't had this for decades.
Right.
It's incredible.
This guy filmed it.
This guy filmed it, and this happened 50 years ago. So the technology was readily available at that time to record things, right? I mean, it's incredible. So, Dave, you read this whole story. You're aware of what's going on. The NFL wants to buy this from him, of course, and they make the pathetic offer of 30 grand. He says no, of course. He does not need 30 grand. I think the number would have to be much, much higher. But the interesting thing is that he is not legally allowed to sell it to anyone else.
Right. He doesn't own the rights. He physically owns the recording, but the NFL is very aggressive with copyrights, part of why we never show clips from anything NFL related on the show. And they own the rights to everything that happens in the stadium, videos that people take, the broadcast. It's all owned by the NFL. So while he physically owns the tape, rightfully, he can't sell the tape to anybody else because he doesn't own the rights to the content. So basically, it's going to be a standoff, right? If the NFL eventually comes up with a price he wants to accept, he can accept it. But otherwise, he basically just has to hold it. He can't really do anything else with it.
You would think that the NFL would just offer a pretty sweet payday here.
Give him like a tiny little fraction of what the commissioner makes.
Yeah. Be a lot more than 30 grand.
Exactly.
Ridiculous what that guy makes, especially because he's incompetent. Well, is he incompetent? I mean, if his job is just to protect the NFL,
yeah.
If that's his focus,
I guess he's doing it.
Maybe he has done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because it's not like he has a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. I could understand all sorts of corruption and secrets being kept in a situation like that.
Right.
But I guess he's trying to protect the sport as a whole, but he's not protecting the players.
No.
And the players, without the players, the sport doesn't happen. I guess he's in a precarious situation, but he does just come off as an ass. He really does. So anyway, that's what's going on with the Super Bowl tape. Maybe it will never be sold, but we'll follow the story. And I don't know. I kind of do hope that the NFL gets the tape and that he gets a lot of money. I think that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right. One more basically football-related story. So there's a series about O.J. Simpson's life that we have not seen. It's supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, is it Cuba Gooding Jr.? Does he play O.J.?
I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure about that. But okay. I hear that it's quite interesting.
Okay, he does play. He does play O.J. It's called The People versus O.J. Simpson: American Crime Story, and it's I guess Cuba Gooding Jr. believes that O.J. Simpson, and it's incredible that we haven't thought of this considering how much we've talked about CTE.
Right. That
O.J. Simpson developed CTE early, and that may be a big part of the reason that the murder happened. That the heist.
Allegedly.
Yeah, okay. He fucking did it. Let's not...
Not guilty criminally, found responsible civilly. Make of it what you will.
Okay, let's not insult the intelligence of our audience. O.J. Simpson is a murderer.
I wonder if he's still on the hunt for the real killer from prison.
Yeah. Of course, he's only in prison because of the theft of his...
Stealing back his own memorabilia. Yeah.
Getting back his own memorabilia. And it's perfectly plausible that brain damage could have caused him to spiral out of control like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that CTE seems to be connected to anger, right? Like just misplaced and irrational anger. And could anger get you to kill someone? Sure. I mean, we've seen it happen before. It's an interesting idea.
What was his name? Javon Belcher, who killed his girlfriend and his kid and then committed suicide. I think he was a Cardinals player or something. That happened not too long ago.
Right.
I mean, it's happening all the time, and I guess we won't find out until he dies.
It's interesting that this is the first time I've ever heard this, and it is kind of. I mean, we have no reason to think. We have no scientific evidence that this is true, but at least it's something to consider with everything we've been learning about football, head injuries, and CTE. it's amazing we haven't heard this before.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And there's a quote here. If you look at Simpson's professional career, he broke records in high school. He broke records in college, winning the Heisman. Gooding said he rushed for 2,000 yards in one season, and only 6 other players have done that in today's NFL, which is 16 games per season. He did it in 14 games. The abuse his brain must have taken to achieve these things, there has to be something to be said. And I think he's probably right. I hope that that we get those results when OJ meets his end. Because I don't think that there is a way to find out until you can actually perform an autopsy.
Definitively speaking, yeah.
So tell us if you think this makes sense. I think it makes perfect sense. And it is very strange that we're just thinking of this now. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
Anything to add?
Nothing today.
Is your hair okay today?
Yeah, doing pretty good.
And what color is that shirt?
This is salmon.
Okay. Thank you.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.